and you come to stand bail for your husband, Mrs. Knight? I said, I have. And he said, have you got the money? I said, I've got X amount years of pension with local government, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, I really do trust you, and I think we could trust you with your husband. And as he said that, one of the officers who had arrested David jumped up and said, we don't accept Mrs. Knight as a surety because we're going to arrest her when she leaves this police station. Oh, what for? Cheek. Anyway, I don't piss crooked, but I thought we'd leave that out in a court of law. And the judge said, if you was going to arrest Mrs. Knight, you should have done it when she walked in this court or at the time you arrested Mr. Knight. And I got David out on bail. I don't know what happened. He got not guilty on that case, I think. But all I'm saying, that's how much they wanted him. That they were willing, a local government officer. And Ernie Eban said to me as I came out, local government officer. I said, I am. I'm a local government officer.
Do you think a lot of it was in those days, or maybe now, I don't know, but that their psyche is that crimes are so hard to solve and a lot of paperwork, a lot of effort required. If they've got a guy that can be fitted up really easily and has a track record, they'd rather go that way than make any effort to find the real.
Well,
did they ever say why, what it was for?
I think what you've got to remember, doing the World in Action programme didn't do David a lot of good. How many people were friends of Smith and the other one who was marching on in prison? Because that was made quite clear by World in Action and Private Eye. So their loyalties are not going to be with David, are they? They're going to be with his friends and all this and that. Because even if they knew they were guilty, they don't see it as that, do they? Oh, well, they made a mistake. They shouldn't be in prison. And of course, when it was well known that it was being on World in Action, they took that personally. It was a personal thing. That's what it was. Them being in prison, they thought David done it. But he was in the scrubs. What I'm saying is they connected David to it because he was on World in Action and everyone was saying, and these two wicked police officers, well, they didn't want that to be known, every opportunity. And to nick me, Jesus Christ, what a cheek. What were they going to nick me for? No, the judge wouldn't let them nick me. And when we went downstairs, David said, he said to David, because he had to sign David out, and I was down there with him because I had to sign for David. And he said, David, I got some things of yours down the police station, you better come and get them. He said, fuck off and keep away from me. And that was the only time he... Oh, he did tell me to shout out scum one day when the regional, the three of them were riding in the car next to us up High Street, Ken. He said, spit at them, open that window and spit at them. I said, you spit on them, I'm not going to prison. No, I did. But I used to take my old English. They were so naughty, these police officers. They came and took me out of the council, you know. Two of them. They were out of Chelsea. And I had to go, and they went through my locker, which was a bit off because it was a drinking cabinet for the older boys when they come down and checked my gyros. Anyway, they took me home to my home to search it. They had a search warrant. David was nicked apparently. I was with him, but I don't know what he was nicked for. But anyway, they come in and took me out. And the soppy bastard of one of them said, that's where I live, Queen's Club Garden, that's my car. What a mug. So while David was in remand in Brixton, I used to take my old English sheepdog round there every day to up his car. I said, what dicko? What dicko tells you, someone, a thief's wife, where you live? That shows you how clever they are. Yeah, cheek.
What amazes me about all this is, you know, up until you were with David, you had no, you know, you didn't come from a line of criminals or
No, I was a good little girl.
But very quickly, you're au fait with how criminal law works.
Oh,
You know.
oh, I could do them all up, mate, I tell you. Gangster's mole. I don't piss crooked, I don't know about anything.
But that must have been such a stressful kind of time to having to, you know, stand bail, know what bail is.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All that, you know, I'm 45, I've never stood bail for anything.
Oh yeah, I used to stand bail for Brian until this bird came down. I was standing bail for Brian. David was nicked. They nicked Blomfield as well. And I was standing bail for him. And when she came round, Soapy Slaggy Sandra, from the ship pit, as I aptly named her, she said, and Blomfield come round and he gave me £20 and he said, whatever you do, don't go round to that Carol, she's a nutcase. I said, did he? She said, yeah. Well, he lived down the same turning as me. So when she went, I rang up Fulham Police Station. I said, this is Mrs. Knight and I'm withdrawing my bail as from now on Brian Blomfield. Well, about 15 minutes, I see a black Mariah going by and he was in the back of it. And he said, what'd you do that for? I said, well, you don't want to get near me because I'm a mad bastard. So I was that mad, I took your bail away. Piss off. Ah, bloody cheek. Yeah, I did. He said, don't go near her, she's a mad woman, everyone knows it. So when she went, I took his bail away. I said, that's what a mad woman would do. Oh, and one night, he sat there with David and me and Carol. Carol will tell you stories like this because he used to knock Carol about a bit. And we were sitting there, I was at the table and David and Carol and Bon Brian. And he said, you two, you'll be better off with a couple of blokes who labour on a building site instead of being with me and David. I said, you? Well, I jumped on him. I dragged him. He was only a little fella. And I was Carol Wright said to me, she kept saying, stop it, she said, give it to him in the nuts. She was whispering that, and they had to pull me up. I scratched into bits of that, and he had the cheek to walk past my window in the morning going, hello, Carol. I'd piss off. Anyway, it turns out that I'd done him the biggest favour. He had a big spot here he was born with, and no one took it off, and I did with my fingernails when I was beating him up. I'd done him a favour. You asked Carol about it, we laughed. But I will ring Carol. She would tell you a lot because she was still with Brian when David was with Soapy Slaggy.
Yeah.
So and of course she will know what went on, and she would definitely give you Bon Bon's number.
And do you think they'd be comfortable about talking about the Vermeer, or is it still a kind of really...
I don't think Carol knew about it.
Yeah.
Don't forget, I only knew about it because of talking he was to other people about it, but I don't think the Van Meer, do you think it should be spoken? There was an article on Van Meer, funny enough, the other day in the paper.
Well, I think it's an amazing twist of fate that essentially David was convicted for saying he didn't do, but then happily played the police with something he did. He did.
And the
do.
judge.
You know, yeah, and is worth so much more than the Colenso diamond.
Oh, well, it certainly is, but the only thing is you're getting a bit on touchy ground there, aren't you? That's the only thing. I think with the Colenso diamond, it doesn't matter that you're calling to coppers slags and that because they went to prison. But you're talking about an High Court judge sitting up there. That is the thing. You had to be in the swindle. The judge had to be in the swindle or he wouldn't have let him walk from court. They're not bad boys, the prosecutor's actual line was. They're not bad boys. I think it was over the grass, Johnny Baker. I think I'm sure it was. I think someone grassed them up, and when they went in the betting shop, they were waiting for a place in Iton Garden to close down, and it was lunchtime on a Saturday. And when he went in, David, with someone else, the old Bill jumped on them. So they were definitely grassed, there was no two ways about it. And I think that's what they walked away from the case, because they got bail on that. Right. But I think someone grassed them. They were working for the old Bill, who was in on it, but then told him what was happening. And I think that's what the painting done. It gave him his freedom. But what could they have done? He hadn't have got in there. They rarely take the word of someone who had done a life sentence and come out.
Well, I imagine they were waiting. They weren't. You know, they probably had equipment with them as well.
Probably in the car.
Yeah.
But Fatty was the safe man. So the key man. The Bosch. He got 21 years, didn't he? The Bosch. He was the best key man there was. I had to take Blomfield. I went up to see him. He was in a prison up the north somewhere. I went with his sister. She was a nice girl. So of course she was taking him in some gear, which was wrapped in the polythene. So she gave him the tongue kiss, and he had got it for the Bosch who was doing 21 years. Unfortunately, the cellophane came away. Blomfield was off his head in hospital for 5 days with about 2 ounces of gear inside of him, and the Bosch was going to kill him when he come out of hospital anyway. True story. I was there. I didn't see him go. I see the sister kiss him. I thought, oh, that's a bit strange. Not knowing she had an ounce or something in her gob. The only thing was, it wasn't wrapped up properly. Yeah, it was for the Bosch. Because they called him I didn't know his name, but they called him the Bosch because it was like opening something, isn't it? Bosch.
I've never heard of him.
But it was nothing to do with David or that. But
So is Fatty Allen still alive, do you know?
I wouldn't think so. He wasn't really a criminal, really, he wasn't. I don't even know where he lived. I didn't even know his last name. He came from we always called him Fatty. He came out of Bethnal Green. You see, there were so many of them that came and went, but if you was looking for the gang as such, it would be Blomfield, the Pepiettes, Brian Marison probably, but don't have nothing to do with him. He's definitely a nutter. He's definitely lost the plot. So they had an autistic son as well, and he died very young. About 16 he died. He was away at home at Christmas. It was terrible. But Brian, I wouldn't, anything he says. He's trying to tell me, he said, did you see my cousin died? He phoned me Tuesday to make a phone call for him to someone, and I didn't bother to do it. And then he said, my cousin died. That was a train robber, wasn't it, in the week? Buster Edwards, wasn't it? Died, he's 88. And he said, that was my cousin. And then when he phoned the next day to see if I had got the information for him, I said, no, I rang, but they weren't in. So he said, my cousin died, Buster. I said, that wasn't his cousin. And so you're not going to get anything out of him. I know it wasn't his bloody... Well, we used to call him the dummy. Mind you, he was lucky. God's good, because if you're a bit mental, he compensates you with winning everything, things like that. You have good luck. But Iris wouldn't even talk about him. She hates him with a vengeance. So, but as I say, you look back, and of course you're getting older, your memory goes a bit, but She definitely had him. When they took David that night from Sandy's, they rounded everyone up. Windle, all of them. And they were all taken to different nicks. And David was taken to Hammersmith. And a police officer rang me the next day. I'd never forget it, it was near Christmas. And he said to me, I was with Kevin. I had Matthew, I think. And he said to me, they're taking me away. They've allowed me a phone call for you. And they took him to a place down in the country, tiny little nick. And I rang my friend up. Kevin was working on the bar for his mother. And I rang my friend up, Kathy from Putney, and I told her, I said, they've taken David down and they will give me a visit if I can get down there. Somewhere in Surrey. And it was real Christmas. It's a really sad story, really, you know. She cried all the way home. I said, what you crying for, you silly cow? It's my husband, not yours, you know what I mean? She did. She cried all the way home. And we went in to see him in this tiny little nick. And he said, I'm going to go away for a long time. I said, oh, don't be silly, of course you're not. And as we got up, he said to Kath, look after her. Although that was my Christmas present, you know, because Sandy couldn't be there because she was in a nick elsewhere in Shepherd's Bush. And I'll never see him for a long time after that. He ended up, didn't he, up north somewhere. Dolly went up there once. Where was it? I know all these prisons. I don't know where it is. And he walked into my office one morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, nearly had a fit. I nearly had a fit. I hadn't seen him. Dolly went up there, Yarmouth it was.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
No, I was pretty protected from that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he was, and I was in my office one morning because my mate used to take me to work, Janet. So she dropped me off in Hammersmith and I had my own office and I was in there and he walked through the door. I really couldn't believe it. I hadn't seen him for ages. I think that was, didn't they try to rob Lord Mountbatten's daughter? Yeah, and I think how they got caught was, he was stopped coming home with the swag in the car and the police officer asked him what his name was. And he gave a name and they said to Bernard, and what's yours? And he gave the same name. So I think they come a bit suspicious over that. And all the swag was in the back of the car. Yeah, where did he end up? He ended up in that's where he was. And he got quite a long sentence for that. They were taking him up to Yarmouth. They had to get him out of, he was in a prison in, near, Long Lartin, was it? No, he wasn't in Long Lartin, Blomfield was in Long Lartin. But he was in a prison. Right, he was divorced. He ended up, she's a big greyhound race owner. Oh, what is her name? She's always on the telly. He ended up with her. Yeah, well, so Iris dressed up as an old woman and borrowed her mother-in-law's glasses and went to White City and see him with her. But she kept the game away because she fell over a chair because she couldn't see with the glasses on. It was a form of disguise. Ended up in Charing Cross Hospital. Well, that's not the point, you know. Bon Bryan, yeah. Nora McAllister, her name is. She's a famous.
And is Iris still alive? Or?
Yeah, she's married to someone down in Clacton. She took it very bad when she found out about the dog trainer because her son was autistic, you know, and then when she found out But a lot of these men used to be quite handy, you know, and that he was a compulsive gambler, and if he'd done his money in the betting shop, he would come home at night and throw things and that. And I was quite lucky. One, David was not strong enough, and two, he was never home anyway, so it didn't matter, did it?
It's interesting though that culture existed, you know, and was just kind of
But do you know
tolerated.
what was strange about them all? They would never take off the poor. They would give it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't take off anyone. I mean, if you think they'd done country house thieves, they were really at one stage. But they said if you went to these houses, and they would have minders outside their safes where they kept the silver and that. And half of them had nicked it. And what they used to scream for an insurance claim was no, and they used to say, sod that, we didn't get that for it, or even anything near it. You know what I mean? They said they're lying. They used to have an insurance claim up, and that was it. But they wouldn't hurt anyone or anything like that. There was no violence with them. You never see them hit anyone. And old people, he was a very generous person, David. They all were. I know that they looked, but it wasn't easy money. Was it really? You know, easy come, easy go, and it wasn't. If you got caught and you was fitted up. And nowadays you only do 1/3 of your sentence, don't you? So remember that, because years ago you used to have to do 2/3. But they only do 1/3 now, I think.
It's a big risk.
So, but yeah, a lot of water under the bridge, eh?
So I was just thinking one other thing that just maybe Barney, just, you know, he said if you were casing somewhere and taking a dog for a walk is the perfect.
Did you know how to go and get him out of Earl's Court? Not David, the dog. They had the dog for 2 days in Earl's Court.
So if you introduce that as
Oh yeah, I
our
will
dog
do.
barn, our dog barn.
Yeah, and of course it upset him somewhat, because the guy who got in the cab, who tried to get in the cab, David gave him a slap because he was sitting in there with Barney, and the Jewish cab driver gave evidence for him for the Arab. So when David's turn was in the dock, he said, "How dare you? How dare you? You were Jews sticking up for him." And what made it worse, he was the son of a diplomat, and they couldn't nick anyone. So, oh, poor girls, I'll tell you a story about Penthouse. This is funny.
Can we do that?
Yeah. Is that okay?
And, what?
Is that okay? Yeah.
Oh, well, you know when he done Penthouse,
Yeah.
he took away some toys, which we never see Ellen and her husband and a certain doll for 3 days. But amongst it also, he took the men's things, well, the women's things that men have,
Yeah.
and he wouldn't pay the fine to the Arab. So we had an Irish guy, bailiff, used to come round for the money, and instead he wouldn't pay the bailiff, and the bailiff used to get drunk as a skunk and send him off with no payment. Well, after about 3 sessions of this, Barney had acquired a certain thing from Penthouse, and he came down, the Irishman, and he said, "I'm not coming in, Carol. We're all on first name terms now." And I said, "Now, don't be silly. Just come in and you can have a nice little drink. David says he's going to give you the money. He says it every time." I said, "But he's going to do it tonight anyway. We've got him ever so drunk." And it was a bit unfortunate because Barney inserted into his pocket the thing from Penthouse. So as he was walking up the road, he wasn't only drunk, but he had something hanging out of his pocket. Never see him no more. I don't know if he committed suicide or what, but no one ever came round for the money. True. Put it in his pocket. Barney's toy.
Excellent.
In fact, when the police came in one day and it was on the bed, they said, "You're a big girl, aren't you?" I said, "It's not mine, it's the dog's." They went, "We all heard those stories before." Honestly, it's true. So what my name was round Fulham, Nick, I don't know. And about that letter he got from one of them about, he used to read the letters that he got from Penthouse, and one of them said, "I would really love to back onto an exhaust pipe of a car." He said, "Would that be any trouble?" He said, "No." So he wrote back the guy and said, "Not if it was doing 100 miles an hour." That was quite an education, that.
Reading all the replies he got.
Yeah! The postman had an earlier carrying up the postal orders. He had to replicate after 3 days because it was looking suspicious. They were all round there looking at the postal order that's going in the post office. "We will send you the most fabulous book you've ever seen. Just put in £7 in a postal order."
Brilliant.
Oh, you could write a book, couldn't you, really?
So do you want to just introduce Barney to because David used to use it a lot as a casing tool.
Yeah.
So if you introduce Barney, and also like that story about you saying about getting you had to go and collect him. From,
Yes,
from
yes, of
prison.
course, yes. Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah.
Do you want it?
Yeah, really, yeah.
It wasn't only poor David who ended up in the police station. At one time, I had to go and retrieve my lovely dog, Dulux, who unfortunately got involved in an affray in High Street, Ken, between David and someone else. And then the someone else was the son of a diplomat, so it got a little bit naughty, and the dog was in there for 2 days before I could go and get him home. David stayed in, by the way.
And the dog's name, you remember? The dog?
Oh, Barney. Mind you, he got his own back because they couldn't have been exercising, because when he come past, I swear this on my grandchildren, as he come past the sergeant, he went right up and... Well, it was supposed to be the counter, but he missed it, Barney. He was probably prison drunk.
Retribution, that's great.
Excellent.
I think if you hear from Carol, it will make things easier, because she will tell you things that I didn't know about,
Yeah.
you know.
No, that's
And if you can get hold of Bon Bon, he's only round at Lily Road, in a little block of flats there, I think.
And what does he do now? Do you know? Just kind of.
No, I think he's lost it. I think he's been put in there. It's like a hostel, I suppose. I know he was in the Nutty Wall, but Blomfield could act a lot. He was quite an intelligent man. He could act a lot, you know. But the trouble was, it was the drinking. You see, as it went on, when I was 16, you got drunk. You didn't see anything. If you did, I mean, I know David, when he came out of prison, I mean, you're thinking for the black he paid £15 an ounce. Well, you'd be lucky to get it for 150 an ounce nowadays. But then I was never into drugs. I'm not saying anything about them. I mean, I've been a heavy drinker all my life. I mean, my mother-in-law used to say I could drink Dockers under the table, but she came from the East End as a barmaid. But they wasn't so rife, really, the drugs. You used to take the tablets, I forget what they used to call them, but you didn't see cocaine or anything like that. It just wasn't And I mean, it's pot now. I mean, I myself personally, I'm all for legalising drugs, though I've never taken one in my life because it was the worst part of America's history, prohibition. The amount of people who weren't involved in smuggling booze were getting killed if you went out with your wife on a Saturday night to the theatre or that. I mean, the amount of people who died through prohibition, it was the worst part of their history, I feel. And if you look at places, I think like Austria and that, they made drugs legal. They cut their violent crimes. Mind you, it took 2 years. But they cut their violent crimes down to 73%. By 73%. And what do you think what the government would make if they controlled it? I think I never have taken them, but as I say, I don't drink now and much because of certain medication I take. But I have been a big drinker all my life, up until about 3 years ago till I had the operation. But I think, and I'll tell you what the main reason why they should legalise drugs. I live facing West Kent Estate where it's rife. And I have lost 2 young neighbours down Chesham Road because they do the weight with rat poison to put the weight up with the coke. Heroin and everything, it's not pure. And this is what's killing the kids. Whereas if it was, you're never going to stop drugs. But if you legalised it, controlled it, I honestly don't know why they don't. But that's what killed 2 of them. They put stuff into the weight, don't you? If you go in and say, I want this, they're not giving you it pure. This is what's killing them, and I think that it should be legalised. Perhaps I'm wrong, I don't know. My mother-in-law disagrees with me, but then she was selling things for years that more alcoholics were dying than anything. So, as a woman who owns pubs, I find that quite... But she's... I don't know, because it done a lot of damage. How many men years ago used to go unpissed and beat their wives up? You know, it was a well-known fact, wasn't it? Well, it's 6pence a gin, wasn't it, in the East End, so women could get drunk and go out and prostitute themselves. It was all government controlled. Anyway, I must get off my left wing.
But it's interesting that you know that time period as well. You know, the 60s were a development of counterculture and drug culture anyway.
Yeah.
That you know those guys would have been experimenting within that as well.
Yeah, oh, without a shadow. I mean, it's like it now. I mean, one of Jimmy Evans' best friend, I see, got killed out in Spain, and he owned clubs. He owned the clubs down by the embankment, and they grew up together. He was his minder, Jimmy. I can't think of his name. I'm terribly sorry. It's been a long time ago. But I read in the paper a couple of years ago he got killed. And that was all drugs, the violence. But as I say, I was drinking all my life, and a heavy drinker. I could drink anything. I used to say, don't give me martini, I'll piss stronger than that. And it's the only drink I don't think I ever touched. Oh, and dark rum, I can't bear the smell. But I drink gin, I could drink any spirit, but I don't miss it. I think I miss the cigarettes more than I miss anything. Because some of my friends still smoke heavy. I don't stop people from smoking down on them, because that would be horrible, really, to think, no, I've sat there and done it for years. You got a packet of fags on you? Oh. I think you should come home with me.
Yeah, borrow him.
It was very embarrassing that no one knew my business, and when World in Action went out that night, everybody at Hammersmith Town Hall knew who I was the next day. Because there was no colour television, and World in Action must have had a lot of viewers really at the time, wasn't it? You only had a couple of television channels, not like now.
Yeah, the viewing figures were huge. There were sort of 8 million people.
Yeah, oh, I know. But of course it was a bit unfortunate for me.
Were you interviewed in the World in Action?
No, but everyone knew who David was because he used to come up with the dog and meet me. That was the thing. So it was a bit It was a bit unfortunate, really. Mind you, I didn't say nothing. Well, they did say nothing to me then. They were on a bit of a rough from them, mate, I tell you. And you are just beautiful, Vera. Vera? What's a Vera? I said, no, I'm not going to put her on. I said, you got it. When I'm talking Cockney to them, they love it because they're very, very old. He's, Simon was lovely, Whitworth. They've just done a big thing at him at Oxford University, a big, they had a service for him. He died just in November.